So good afternoon, everybody.
It's a good evening here in Tanzania, Uncle.
Habari zenu? Umeisha kukula vizuri?
Asante sana.
Did you save anything for me?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, everybody. So yeah, we are trying some new technology. The world has changed a bit and it's not easy to travel, but I'm happy to be with all of you this evening. I can see you're in a nice place and you're enjoying some good food, and yeah, I wish I could be with you, but since I can't be with you, we're going to go virtual, and we will try and do this small talk I have for you. And I'm going to share the screen, so the screen will come up in a minute, but we're just delighted to be able to continue to have these retreats. This year, we're calling them mini retreats because trying to avoid gathering many people together. I know in TZ it's not such a big deal, but in other countries, they have really put restrictions on meetings like this. But this evening, I want to talk to you about overcoming the storms of life and also finding the gifts in these times. In every challenging time, there's also gifts in it. So there's a way that you can get something out of this situation. I know in Tanzania, this coronavirus has been handled a bit differently, but all over the world, it has not been an easy year. 2020 has been like a World War III, except this time people are not fighting each other, they're fighting a virus, which invisible enemy, which is probably a good thing. And it's a kind of a time of crisis. I can see happy on the screen there. The Chinese word for crisis, it has 2 letters or characters. In China, in the Chinese language, they write their words using these characters. And the word for crisis in Chinese is very interesting. It has 2 characters. The first is a time of danger, and the second is a time of opportunity. So for them, they see that in times of crisis, there's also opportunities there. So that's what we mean by finding the gifts in this time, trying to see what God is trying to show us during this epidemic, this time of Corona. But I just wanted to begin by reminding you of the main points or the main pillars that we have in this family of friends. In Cornerstone, we have the aspect of taking up leadership to create influence for a better world. These are the things that we would like you to be known by. Wherever you go, just stand up to take up responsibility, to be a leader. Number 2, to keep your integrity, to be the salt and light in the system. I know it's very hard in the current world to live 100% with integrity, because all around us we see corruption, we see immorality, we see many problems, but we are asked by Jesus to be the salt and the light of the world. And number 3 is to promote reconciliation and unity across the divisions that exist in our world with the unconditional love of Jesus. I think in Tanzania, probably one of the biggest divides is between Christians and Muslims, or it can be between different regions. And we are called to stand in the gap and to be bridges and to overcome these differences. And then lastly, we just want to encourage all of you to invest in friendships and relationships, and to see that the people that are around you now, they'll be with you throughout your life. So this is really the what we call the 4 pillars in Cornerstone, and yeah, and it's just something I wanted to remind you of. You know, we have this family of friends concept, but it only makes sense if we all choose to work at it, to love and care for each other, to invest time in being together, and to intentionally work at our relationships, being vulnerable and being transparent about the things that we are going through. I noticed on the COSA communications, it says we build our family, we build our own happiness. And this is really true in life. And these two things are connected. The relationships that you have around you are largely going to add value to your happiness, but you have to work at them. They don't come accidentally. So why do we have these retreats every year? We keep these retreats going so that we can reconnect with one another, we can reconnect with our values, our vision, but also just to strengthen a collective dream or a collective vision that we have of staying together, mpaka last, staying together throughout our lives, making a difference in this region in our lifetime. We've been doing this thing longer in Uganda than in Tanzania, and right now we're having elections in Uganda, and from what we can see, there will be about 4 or 5 members who become members of parliament. So you can see that, yeah, if we stay together over time, we can make a difference. But we're also gather at times like this to gain inspiration from one another, to shed off some of the stress from books and from life that we are all facing out there in the world, just to have fun, enjoy each other's company, and to enjoy the presence of the Lord in this place, and to learn from and encourage each other as we take this walk through life together as a family of friends. So these are really the reasons why we struggle to have these retreats. We call these retreats an investment. It's an investment in you, the few who have been in Cornerstone, because we believe that you will impact the many. So we say it is an investment in the few who will impact the many. So, you know, we spend this money to bring you together because we believe in you. I believe in you, our sponsors believe in you, God believes in you. There's something in you, a gift that you have to share with the world. If you didn't have it, you would have never been guided by God to go through Cornerstone. You would have never been able to hear these teachings. You would have never been able to have the relationships around you. So just by virtue of you hearing my voice and being at this retreat, it means that God sees something in you. He believes in you. So this time is just an investment in you to encourage you to push on, to stay strong. So we can ask ourselves, are we making ourselves worthy of that investment? And are we determined to fulfill the calling that God has for us? And are we determined not to disappoint those who are investing in us? And will we provide a return on that investment? So these are things to think about. We like to reflect on them once in a while at the retreats so that we stay on track, we stay together, and we just fulfill the vision and the mission that God sent us here to planet Earth to carry out. So, as I said, this has been a strange year. I know that you had some experience with some lockdown in TZ, but in many countries, it has still continued. A lot of people are confused. Some people don't know what the future holds. I've been hearing even from some of our COSA members in TZ who have lost their jobs or they can't find work. And I know it's not easy. Even there, the economy has been severely affected, and it's a tough time to kind of try and get settled in the world. It's a time of uncertainty, but I just want to encourage you that it'll be okay. And just keep the faith that things will work out, even if you cannot see how. And if you get really stranded, let us know, reach out to us, and we'll see how to support one another through this time. I've been in Uganda throughout the whole time. We're still in lockdown. The airport is closed. You can't go outside of the borders. Schools have been closed, but they are talking maybe next week they will reopen for the candidate classes of P7 of Senior 4 and Senior 6. But there still is some restrictions on public transport and yeah, quite a bit of challenges to the whole economy. Uganda has been good at tracking cases, and you can see it wasn't doing so bad until around August, and now the cases have been shooting up in Uganda. It's now over 2,000 today. So we have a lot of active cases, and yeah, we're in a country that has decided to approach it a little bit differently than TZ, and we don't know, maybe the TZ approach is going to be the best. This thing has confused all the scientists, all the doctors in the world, so no one knows what is actually the best course of action. But in this country, we have a lot of restrictions, and we have been still affected by the schools being closed. Before I go into the talk, I want to just bring you greetings from my family. Eric and his wife, Danny, and their 2 little boys, they're here in Uganda with us. And our daughter, Jessica, and her husband are in the US. I think at the time of the last COSA retreat, our daughter had not yet given birth, but she gave birth to a nice little boy, a happy, healthy boy, and we just thank God for that. He's almost making 9, or actually 11 months now. And here in Uganda, Eric's 2 boys, Pax and Leo, are with us. So we're just happy that our families is safe. You know, the US, it's been a bit tough for them with Corona, but our daughter and her husband are fine. They haven't had any problems. So yeah, I've been able to spend more time with Leo and Pax. They come over to my house at least once a week, and since the schools are closed, I'm doing some homeschooling with them. I read to them, also teach them mechanics, teach them how to fix their bicycles. And yeah, those are some of the ways that we are dealing with this situation. I've also taken up a new hobby, which is riding a motorcycle, a sports motorcycle that was in my garage. So it's given me some fun during this time. But today I want to talk to you about, I think our topic was overcoming the storms of life. I know it's still a storm that is continuing in many places, but overcoming, let me spell this right, overcoming the storms of life is what I wanted to talk to you. And this Corona has been like a storm for the whole world. A storm causes some kind of disorganization, some chaos. But behind the storms, there are natural cycles, and sometimes storms come to restore balance by shifting things around so that something new can emerge. A lot of people have been asking me, why do I think that God allowed this coronavirus to come? I can't say for sure. There are many speculations, but I believe that in all things, God works together for good. So I think something good will come out of this. So whether you're in any kind of storm, you can have a storm in your family when the family is maybe going through a crisis. You can have a storm in your life when your maybe relationships or finances are stressing you. So storms come in different forms. So whatever form that maybe a storm comes to you in life, today I want to give you some thoughts on how to move through and overcome the time of a storm, because storms will just keep on coming. There's an experiment that was done in the desert in America. They tried to create an ideal environment like a house where human beings could live in, maybe if they wanted to create some kind of a settlement on the moon or on Mars. So in the desert, they created this structure called Biosphere 2, which was like a enclosed place where they could grow food and control the temperature, and human beings could live maybe in a place where it wouldn't be possible normally to live. So they made this big structure, and they had all the air and the water and the soil inside. And the idea was to create perfect growing conditions for trees, for vegetables, for fruits, and even for humans to survive maybe in a place that is very hostile. So when they made this structure the first time and people started living in it, after some months, they started to observe that the trees were collapsing. The trees would grow up to a certain height and then they would just fall over for no reason. And the scientists had to scratch their head and understand, why is it that these trees are collapsing? We have given them all the proper conditions, but when they reach a certain height, they just collapse. So there's something like this, which they discovered, that these trees were not having any wind or any storm, so their roots were very shallow. So something like this is also happening with the way that God allows storms to come, to blow us, to give us a bit of challenge in life. Just like the trees need the wind and the storms to develop deep roots, human beings need some kind of storm to develop spiritual roots. So one of the reasons that God allows storms to come is to make us grow deeper, and not just to grow taller, but to deepen our spiritual roots, to develop our character. All right, so just to move through this presentation quickly, and then I'll stop and open it up. I want to give you tonight 7 thoughts on overcoming the storms of life. 7 thoughts on overcoming the storms of life. So that'll be my topic for tonight. The first point of the 7 is just know that storms are kind of natural. They are periodic occurrences that will keep coming throughout life. Storms never stop in life. Many years ago, I remember my senior mentor, Michael Timmis, saying that he had passed through many storms in his life, and that the storms in life always keep coming. And it struck me because he's older than me, and he had lived more life than me, but I took it to heart that storms will be there. Come what may, storms will always be part of it. Storms come to test our strength and expose our weaknesses, especially as leaders. They force us to develop strong roots. By the way, Mzee Michael and Mama Nancy send their greetings to all of you. They wish they could have come this year. This is the first year they have not come to Africa after 30 years. But we're having a Zoom call with them at CLA, and maybe we can open it up and have some of you listen in. So we'll do a virtual meeting with them in the next couple of weeks. But Mama Nancy has been diagnosed with cancer of the blood, so they may never come to Africa again. We're not really sure. But they send their greetings, and we just need to pray for them. They're going through, I think, another storm. They're about 80 years of age, so I think it's not so surprising, but yeah. But storms teach us the importance of investing. Not just investing financially, but investing in relationships. When you're in a storm, the friends that you have around you will be the ones who will be there to keep you strong. You also need to invest in health, preventative health, and to invest in spirituality so that you're ready to face the storms of life. Jesus gave a story about a wise man who built his house on a rock. It was a story about the storms of life. He says, whoever hears these words of mine and puts them into practices like a wise man who built his house on a rock. And he gives a story about how there were two men who had built house, one on the rock and one on sand. And when the storm comes and the waters were rising, they swept off the house which was built on sand, but the house that was built on a rock remained firm. So this is a teaching to us that we need to build our life on firm foundations so that when the storms of life hit, they don't completely disorganize us. The second point I want to make tonight is that when a storm hits, it's a signal for us to move higher. It's a signal that God is telling us to move closer to Him. On the screen, you can see a picture of an eagle. They say that during a storm, the eagle is the only bird that flies upward. When the small birds are trying to go down and take cover out of fear, the eagle goes upward. It flies, it can fly above the clouds, and it knows if it gets above the clouds, there's no rain, there's no storm up there. And so in the same way, when we see a storm coming, we need to move closer to God. God is not affected by storms. And above the clouds of life, the sun is always shining, and God's love is always constant. So point number 2 of the 7 says that when you're facing a storm, just take it as a signal to move closer to God. Don't go down in fear, but go upwards and connect with God like the eagle. Point number 3, I'm doing these 7 points and then we'll stop for some comments. Point number 3 says we might be all in the same storm, but realize that we are not all in the same boat. So for some people, this time of a storm has actually been good. Some people have made money because of the pandemic. But for others, it's a time when they have lost their jobs. I know in Tanzania, many of the people that have worked in the tourism industry have lost their jobs. So we can be in a storm with other people, but we can be in different boats. The meaning is that we have different capacities to weather the storm. If someone has a big boat and they're in the water, the storm doesn't really disturb it much. But these small boats can easily get flooded and get swamped if they're on the water and a storm hits. So the point I'm trying to drive here is just recognize that when you're going through a tough time, even in a family or in a community, recognize that for some it's affecting them much worse. People have different capacities based on the size of their boats. Someone can have a strong boat that allows it to go through the storms, and other people have a small boat that is easily overcome. So just to recognize when you're in a crisis or when you're in a storm, that there are some people around you that it's affecting much, much worse, and try and be there for them during that time. So point number 3 is we are all in the same storm, but we are not in the same boat. Okay, I'm talking about 7 points on coming out of a storm or overcoming a storm. Point number 4 says, during a time of a storm, you have the responsibility to keep yourself strong. There's a way that we have to encourage ourselves. If you look at these small wooden boats or canoes in Africa, you'll see that the fishermen, they're always scooping out any water that accumulates inside. They know that as long as they keep the water out, it doesn't matter how rough the ocean is, how big the waves are. As long as they don't build up inside of that boat, it can't sink it. So the teaching here is that we have to keep depression, anxiety, fear out of our lives. Don't let it build up to get too much inside of you. but keep scooping it out so that you don't get overcome. One of the ways to keep yourself strong is just to meet in fellowship with others. The other thing is when you're going through problems, find people who can encourage you, pray for you. This is what is meant by this point number 4, that all the water from all the oceans cannot sink a boat unless it begins to build up too much inside of it. So when you're in a storm, just keep yourself strong, keep yourself free of the things as much as you can that can sink you, and you'll pass through the storm. Number 5, as leaders, and all of you, I see all of you as leaders. During a storm, you have to be someone who gives hope and encouragement to those around you. There's a quotation by Napoleon that says, "Good leaders are dealers in hope." In other words, a good leader lets people feel encouraged and faith for the future, that we can make it, we're going to overcome this. On the screen, you can see a picture of a boat. This is a picture from the refugees after the end of the Vietnam War in 1975. When the US pulled out of South Vietnam and the North Vietnamese that were being backed by Communist China started to invade the South, the people in the South feared for their lives and they started leaving the country. Vietnam is like a long peninsula surrounded by water. So the people in the South, they had nowhere to go except to leave by sea. So over the next 20 years, about 2 million refugees left by boat. And these boats met many conditions on the ocean. But one of the Vietnamese spiritual teachers, I like his books called Thich Nhat Hanh, discovered that among those boats that survived, there was a common theme, and he wrote about it this way. He said, when the crowded refugee boats met with storms or pirates, if everyone panicked, then the whole boat could get lost. But even if one person on the boat remained calm, remained centered or strong, it was enough. It gave hope to the others, and they found a way to survive. So in times like these, as leaders, you need to be that one person who gives hope to others. Give hope to your family, give hope to your community, that you can make it when they're affected by a storm. Point number 6 is that storms shift things around. They create change, but in times of change, there's also opportunity. So when you're going through a storm, use it as a time to change for the better. The storm can destroy old things, but it gives space for new things to emerge. Like I said at the beginning, the Chinese word for crisis, it has 2 characters. It says it's a time of danger, but it says it's also a time of opportunity. So a storm comes, recognize that in the storm, there might be an opportunity to change and improve. For example, right now I'm speaking to you on Zoom. In Cornerstone, we are conducting meetings all over the region on Zoom. I've even spoken to people in America, people in India, COSA TZ people in Costa Rica. So the crisis brings an opportunity to do things differently. And sometimes better things can come out of it because of it. So point number 6 is recognize that storms shift things around. They create change, but in change, there's opportunity. The last point is how to come out of a storm. And to come out of a storm, this point says, do the next right thing. I got this from one of the recent Walt Disney movies called Frozen Part 2. I don't watch many movies. I don't watch many cartoons. I didn't even see Frozen 1, but people are telling me this Frozen Part 2, it has some spiritual messages. So I went to see it early this year. And I got this message of do the next right thing. In this movie, the main character. I think she's called Elsie or something like this. She inherited a kingdom from her father, from her grandfather. She's a princess, but some kind of a storm comes on the land. And there's darkness and there's problems. And then she is told in a vision that this thing is happening because your grandfather, he deceived, he cheated another tribe many years ago. And unless you go and correct that mistake, this storm, this crisis will not leave your country, your land. But she wasn't given clear instructions on how to solve the problem. She was only told, you're going to go on a journey, and at each step of the journey, if you just do the next right thing, eventually you'll be guided step by step, and you will find out, you will come out of the storm. So that's what she did. And she went on this long journey. She had many challenges, and she discovered that her grandfather had actually deceived another group, another tribe, and they needed to be a reconciliation and apology for the storm to be lifted from their country. So she did all of that. But it reminds me of a quotation by Martin Luther King Jr., who said, faith is taking the next step even when you don't see the whole staircase. So I'm on the last point, point number 7, which says, when you're in a storm, just do the next right thing. When you can't see the whole staircase, just focus on the step that's ahead of you or that's right available to you. Many times the next right thing in your life is nothing big or flashy. It may not even be recognized or applauded by others. People won't even know you do it. It's the small things that God has been telling you to do, but you have been putting them off. It's the little things that you can do. It might be apologizing to someone that you have hurt, or forgiving somebody, or paying back a debt, or picking up that call and calling a person. So whether you are still in a storm or you're trying to come to recover after a storm, if you keep doing the next right thing, the little things that God is telling you to do, however small, you start to put your life back into alignment with the perfect will of God. And somehow things start to work out. You see some things flowing and you come out of that problem or that storm. So point number 7 says, when you're stuck, when you're not sure, or when you don't see the way forward, just do the small things. The little things that you know you are supposed to be doing, the little things that you can do, the next right thing that God is telling you to do. So these are my 7 points that I'm concluding with today. Number 1, storms are natural occurrences. They keep coming. Number 2, when a storm hits, take it as a signal to move higher. Don't go down in fear. Number 3, recognize that we can be in the same storm, but we're in different boats. Number 4, in a storm, you have a responsibility to keep yourself strong. And number 5, as a leader in a storm, you have a responsibility to keep those around you strong. Number 6 is storms create change. They shift things around. So there might be new opportunities, new blessings that come out of a storm. That is what we mean by finding the gifts during this time. And then lastly, to come out of a storm, just keep doing the little right things. Do the next right thing God is telling you, and step by step, you will come out. So these are my 7 thoughts on overcoming the storms of life. If you'd like this material, I can send it to you. You just send me an email at my email address. It's very simple, timkruta@gmail.com. And I'll be able to give you this copy. I hope you guys have been able to follow this presentation. I'll just ask Branley or Master Sam to take over and